At 9 years old, Chitra, I knew that I was going to do this because I poked my head out of between the seats of my parents' car on a family drive. And I said, I'm going to be the one to figure out how to love without getting hurt. The biggest pain that a person can have when you're obsessed with love, when you want love, when you don't want to get hurt in love, is betrayal. And so I got a series of that. Starting from that same summer when I had poked my head out at 9, that's when it imprinted. See, I speak in conferences and on expert panels about love, but let's be very honest. When I'm being quiet with myself and I'm alone with myself, I notice that things happen in my everyday life. I think that I'm loving somebody, but when I do it, I'm actually hurting these people. So
I am super excited today to welcome a brand new friend who I have recently met, but we have clicked in a way that is only possible with similar energies. So welcome, Sanya Bari. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chitra. I'm so happy to be in this conversation with you.
Oh, I can't wait. I know this is going to be a good one. So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about who you are so my listeners can understand more about you.
So I am Sanya Bari, relationship therapist and trauma. My specialty is relationship trauma therapy. So I'm going to do all of that good stuff, the narcissistic abuse, infidelity, divorce, codependency, loss of love, really just being lost at love, lost at sea, at the sea of love. That's really my thing, to bring clarity there.
Love it. You're doing dealing with all the dark issues that we all face, but don't know where to go with. So how long have you been doing this for?
So I would say that I've been doing it for about 20 years, but I've been a therapist for I would say even 12 of that.
Wow.
But at 9 years old, Chitra, I knew that I was going to do this because I poked my head out of between the seats of my parents' car on a family drive. And I said, I'm going to be the one to figure out how to love without getting hurt.
Wow.
I just knew it
You
back
knew
then.
it. You
Yeah.
knew it. Oh, I love that. Oh my God, what clarity you had as a 9-year-old. So tell me what has this journey been like? Because we at this podcast, the Warrior Mindset, we talk all about that mindset work that we all need to do. And so, what has that journey been like for you in helping people, kind of break free of these difficult relationships that they're in or the lack of love? What has that been like for you from a therapist's perspective?
So from a therapist perspective, from that 9-year-old little part of me, and that even at that point, it felt like purpose, and it's felt like that my whole life. And I just didn't know what that entails. I didn't realize. I thought this was going to be like a nice movie or something, but obviously this was not at all elegant. And it was not at all tied with a ribbon. And I basically got what you're meant to get when you put yourself out there and you say, I am here to learn. The teachers will appear and the teachings are not always nice and neat. And so I had basically the biggest pain that a person can have when you're obsessed with love, when you want love, when you don't want to get hurt in love, is betrayal. And so I got a series of that, starting from that same summer when I had poked my head out at 9. That's when it imprinted. And I can see it now, sitting back here and looking at my whole journey, how there was a whole arc of pain that had spotted like a bookmark at various places in my life, running that same script on repeat. Maybe this time I'll figure it out, type of thing.
Wow. So you had your own journey with pain. And is that what led you to this quest of understanding the mind and what goes on in there and helping people deal with
Yeah,
this?
Chitra, thank you for asking. Like, I studied psychology the moment that I could get my hands on psychology, and I wanted to, and I wanted my answers. Like, I wanted to help people, but hey, I wanted my answers. Two master's degrees, and years of clinical practice only in relationships. That was my specialty. We had 3 luxury branches of my practice, and my inner reality is. I'm sitting on expert panels. My professors are sending me their family. However, my reality was very scary because I was like, oh my God, I've done all of these checklists that I was supposed to do. That, oh my God, if I just do these, then I'll get my answers. But I didn't have my answers. And that's what our conversation when Chitra and I were speaking about was that psychology gets you to a really good level of insight and understanding. And if you want to go beyond that, and I definitely, that was my game. Like I wanted to go beyond that. When you are in a field long enough, you start to see the holes in it. And those holes were making holes in me. Because this was not academic for me. It was very personal. And so I always say that you get to a certain point, and if you want to go higher, you have to go spiritual. What do you think, Chitra? What do you think
Oh
about
my God, I love that. And I remember when I met you first, you said you were a spiritual psychologist, and it piqued my interest because I was like, what is that? I mean, I had heard of psychology. I know a lot about spirituality, but I had never seen an actual degree in spiritual psychology or never heard of that. So I was fascinated. Tell me now that you've become a spiritual psychologist, where do you even go to school? Is there a school? Like, what did you do for that?
Yes. So after I go through that whole thing and my practice, I'm like, I did not. I found the University of Santa Monica in California, where I only went for the 1 year to do my advanced spiritual psychology, and I stayed for all three. And if they had more, I would have stayed for that. And it was just like a gorgeous, gorgeous education done in everything that I had ever studied in psychology finally made sense.
Wow.
Because even my first lesson in psychology, the word psyche in Latin is soul.
Mm.
And yet, as we progressed in our education in the very, very Psych 101, constantly I was noticing this desire to be so empirical because, oh, we're science, we're going to catch up with other people. And what we did, unfortunately, which thank God, I have to say, Chitra, it's coming back. You see the articles in Psychology Today. It wasn't back at that time when I went, but it's coming back. We are putting soul back into psychology.
Love that so much because, you know, and I didn't know that psyche meant soul in Latin. So thank you for telling us that. That is amazing. And yes, we all have a soul in us, and we're all living the spiritual life in these human bodies. So I am fascinated that there is a school out there that is actually giving people degrees in spiritual psychology. I always joke that if I could go back in time, I would probably be a therapist because that is the work that I love to do, is to dig into people's minds and see what's going on and what drives them. So I guess the next question that I want to ask you is, what do you think is the difference between psychology and spiritual psychology? What is the thing that yes, it's about the soul, but how do they explain that in a way? Like if you
Well,
could.
and it's funny that you say that because when I did come back and I started practicing, I wanted to go full on, and I actually left this therapist hat, and so I now work as a transformational coach, relationship transformation coach, and I do that because the difference is that there isn't the mention of the word love and God. And that's okay because not everyone believes in God. People have had situations in their life where people have used the word God to commit crimes against them. And it is very dangerous that for them to hear that word, especially in a place where they're coming to heal. And we don't need that. I have a school called the School for Transformational Healing. And there are people who start to misunderstand that it's some type of a religious thing. And I tell them, if you have a relationship with God, that's fine. But the universe, the higher power, there's nobody in this world who cannot benefit from letting go and healing judgments and coming into the calm, coming into that clarity.
There's so many different philosophies, so many different books, so many different concepts that are talking about the same thing, right? If
Yeah.
you have you heard of A Course in Miracles?
Yes, I have
Right.
done the Course of Miracles. Yes.
So that's all about non-judgment and
Yes.
coming from that place of letting go of all judgment,
Yes.
which is hard to do because we are ego beings as well as spiritual beings. So for someone who is kind of struggling in their mindset with, let's say, relationships, because that's your specialty, right? And I know that culturally you understand, the South Asian culture as well. So what is something that you have seen, first of all, that is common in
Mm.
terms of relationship stress in our own
Okay.
communities?
Yeah, and if you're gonna, so the South Asian culture is just a gorgeous culture about relationships. I was joking with my husband the other day, and I said, do you like? Have you ever heard of a culture that has such particular names for this is your dad's brother? Like we have names for relationships. We have a relationship based culture. But I mean, I'm gonna speak Hindi right now when I'm gonna say for tomorrow. You can't tell. It's like God, like it's like, is it tomorrow or is it yesterday? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But we
yeah.
got the particulars about. So do you see the focus? Like our whole, it is a gorgeous culture about relationships, but the danger in that, danger in anything good. Let's say that we say prayer. You go to that extreme, that's a problem. You do food, healthy food, that can be a problem.
Anything
Anything
extreme.
there you go.
Yeah.
So just like that, the dark side of the beauty of the relationships in our culture is that codependency. It's not understanding where you begin and another person ends.
Mhm.
And I think the love clarity method that came through me, that really basically came after my own, by the way, suicide attempt, um, at the depth of my own pain, where I was like, okay, you know what, my whole life is a complete waste. I don't understand what I'm doing here. And it became so dark for me. And that, to me, Chitra, that was my final act of control, because I was like, you know what, if I can't do this, let's just finish this.
Yeah.
And and I don't mean to speak um about suicide in any type of a way that might hurt somebody. But for me, what came out of that was, even though after my suicide, because they sent me back, they're like, no, you're going back. It didn't work. So, but what came out of it was this. I woke up to a life that was exactly like I had left it. I was the same. The people was the same. The situation was the same. I was just as big a loser in my mind as I had left. Anything that I had done, I felt like just a failure in everything. And most of all, the South Asian culture, I felt like I was failing my family because I was failing at my own relationship. My own marriage had infidelity, it had codependency, it had things that I just couldn't peel myself out of, and I couldn't make the moves that I needed to, because I was so stuck in this idea of this is how it needs to be. So having said that, when I came through, one of the gifts that I received, everything else was as crappy as before, was this ability to be able to see the insanity of what I was doing.
Uh,
And through that clarity, Chitra, I know that's your favorite word of yours.
yes, clarity and alignment, my two favorite words in the world. Yeah.
So, and my method is called Love Clarity too. I remember we
Yeah.
bonded over that. And so, through that clarity came this realization, when in real time, I would watch myself and I would say, I speak in conferences and on expert panels about love, but let's be very honest. When I'm being quiet with myself and I'm alone with myself, I notice that things happen in my everyday life where what I do, I think that I'm loving somebody, but when I do it, I'm actually hurting these people. So I would see hurt on my son's face, on my husband's face, and I would pause and I would say, but I didn't mean to, like I was just loving. And I was like, is something messed up about this? This is not okay. Like, what will it take, Sanya? Like, what education do you need to, like, I have dedicated my life to studying love. And if I can't even get it, like, I don't understand who will get it then. So, and in that moment, I was at an airport. It was an odd thing. And it was an odd moment, Chitra, where my son, was playing with his siblings, getting excited to get on the plane for our family vacation. And a thought came to me. One of those thoughts, like, mom, like, oh, if he does this, then he's going to score better on this and that. Very typical South Asian mom thought, right?
Yeah.
And I decided that I'm going to say this to him. But what had happened before was just my thought about, I really don't know what love is. And I had made a promise that every time I interact with my kids, because that is the love that I know to be the most pure, I'm going to study my love once again, go back to the drawing board. So as I was calling my son forward so that I can dispense this amazing information to him, I noticed that he came with such happiness, because he was coming with this expression like, mom's going to tell me something fun because we're going on vacation. And I was like, hurry up, Sanya, hurry. It threw me off. Check with yourself. Are you really doing this out of love and out of cockiness? I was like, of course I am. What do you mean? Like, of course I'm doing this from love. And he comes and I tell him what I'm supposed to tell him, because this is so earth shattering that needs to be done on our way to vacation, as if something's going to happen. And I see his face drop and his energy drop. And generally speaking, I would, as usual, being in the control mindset, try to fix that. But somehow I just let it sit. I let the burn be inside me of what I had just done. And right after that, one after another, almost like my vision got blocked. I'm at the airport. I've got to do airport things. But I almost like cue cards came these 4 love lies, which are what I use to understand that what I'm about to do, the love that I'm about to give somebody, is it going to be a love that's going to hurt them?
Beautiful. So many things to unpack here. Okay. So you're catching yourself in real time, right? As you're speaking to your son. And it is powerful, right? When that happens. I've had those moments with my older son, and I had to hire a parenting coach to see that. But when I did see it, it's eye-opening, right? It's like, oh my God, I have been playing the parental tapes that were handed down to me,
Yeah.
and I didn't know better. And now I know better, so I must do better. But the onus of change then is now on me. And it's so hard to do this work, right? It's so hard because you want to just, the old tapes are so easy. They're just are always ready, right?
They're
So
set on default. They just keep.
yes, yeah, all you have to do is open your mouth and it comes out, right? And it's such a conscious effort to make this change. And what I find in the work that I do with people, with clients one on one or in group settings, I find that, people are so resistant to making that change. They know that they're in pain because of not making the change, but they cannot find it in them to make that change. So what do you say to someone in that situation where they're like, they can't even see sometimes or they're in denial, right? They're like, this is too much work. This is too much work.
Chitra, it's already happened for us, because the generation that we're at, we're already watching our South Asian community. Like, when I see my South Asian parents, this amount of sacrifice that they have given to their children, I don't know many cultures that can do that. Like, literally, these people will sell themselves out, make themselves bankrupt to make sure that their children get this Ivy League education or whatever else they need, the designer shoes or something. But what I'm really saying is that and then you notice that when these children are being raised, they don't want to see their parents again. When they have a car to drive, they're driving away from their parents, not against them. And then you have you don't need a psych degree to see this pattern. And you're like, I don't want that. I'm not interested in doing this over and over again. We have the thing about, what are people gonna say? In Hindi, it's like, log kya kahenge.
Yes.
But we have that. I get it. I understand that it's beat into us, but that is like, I feel like the most hurtful thing is when no children don't see those moments where we bore them from our bodies and stayed up with them, and when you see these kids leave you and not want to talk to you, that's not something that we're working towards.
Yeah, it's so good that you brought that up, because that is the thing that made me change. When I was working with my friend who's a parenting coach, she literally at one point, the question that came up was, do I want a happy child or do I want a child who is fitting into the mold of being a good, smart Indian kid? Because that's the mold that I was trying to fit him into. And then I realized that his passions are different. And if I allow him to pursue those passions, he will find the drive, he will find the dedication, he will find the motivation. And I saw all of that happen, right? I saw it. Now I see him adult so beautifully. He's about to graduate college, and I see the changes in him, right? But it was hard to do that work, right? It's and to fight the whole system, because I was constantly challenged, right? Every time I hung out with my friends, and I think this is not just true of the Indian culture or the South Asian culture. I think it's true for any immigrant culture, right? Because we work so hard to get to this amazing country that we live in, that we get to call home, and we want our kids to excel, right? But we
Yes.
forget that, we have also evolved in that process, right? And we don't need to play the same tapes that we heard as children, because we
Yes.
also see what it has done to us, right? I know so many middle-aged people now who have suppressed their passions just to get into the workforce and make a decent living. And then they're hitting these walls now in that midlife stage where it's like, I don't know what to do anymore, or I can't find happiness in this anymore, because their true passions are so deep down buried into, some corner in the basement of their hearts, right?
Yes.
So, yeah. Wow. Yeah. So I'm totally with you on that. And I think that the key, as you're saying as well, is that we want to have those long-term relationships
Yes,
with our
yes.
kids.
And I think, Chitra, when our parents came, they were in the survival mode, and I don't even know how these people did it.
Oh
Like,
my,
to be very honest, like, I don't know the level of courage it takes to leave countries and leave villages where there were centuries. Like, nobody left their village. Like, you just you didn't leave your neighborhood, right? And they
yeah.
came here and they did what they did. But and they were in survival, and survival is really important. If we don't have survival, we don't make it. We have nervous breakdowns. We do suicide. We commit suicide. We have early and accidental death. All of these things occur. So we are so grateful for survival. But if we stay in survival and we create from survival, it is meant to take us up the ladder. But if we stay there, that ladder has a limitation. It's almost like reaching the last rung of the ladder and wanting to still climb, you're going to fall down. So when you are creating, continue to create from the survival ladder, even after you've reached its bandwidth, you are going to create that dream house, but you're going to lose the family. You're going to create the fame that you really worked hard for, and then you're going to punch somebody in an international stage in the face, right? You're going to create that accolade that you wanted and then lose your health. So it is like the cat in the hat thing, like you're cleaning one spot and you're creating another spot. So the invitation for us now, because they did their part, the invitation for us is to shift, to carry their work forward, to honor what they did, and to move systematically. And that cannot be done without consciousness. Shift from survival to thriving. It is the consciousness, it is the pause that allows you to say, hey, I'm not doing this again. This is not about they were bad and wrong.
No, they did the best that they could. They
Yes,
did the best that they knew how to at that time, right? And we are doing the best that we know as parents. And so if we're aware enough to do a quick check on ourselves and our behavior, like you did in that moment with your son, where you had that epiphany and you were able to see the clarity of like, oh, okay, am I really loving him? Or unconditionally loving, or am I conditionally loving, almost, right?
yes,
That's it. Almost feels like that distinction became clear for you in that moment.
yes, yes.
So tell us about the love clarity method. What is it? What does it entail? What does it
So,
mean?
I mean, it turns out, Chitra, that what decides whether you're going to get hurt and what you're going to do in love has nothing to do with what you're going to do. You could keep doing the same thing. It has more to do with where you are loving from. Pausing to check in and see where am I loving from. And there are 4 checkpoints that are the 4 love lies that I'm going to speak to you about that came through to me that I was mentioning. And why are these essential? Because these are the 4 most common ways that we have been programmed to think are love, but they're actually the opposite of love. We actually have love at that time when we're doing these, but when we do them, we are not connected to love. We are connected to something else, which would be fear, which would be ego, which would be our anxiety. And these four are guilt, over responsibility, taking responsibility for something that others can take responsibility for, having a momentary satisfaction of a work well done, but then taking away their confidence and then complaining about it later. Guilt over responsibility, role playing, precisely what you were saying, Chitra, just what you were saying just now. That and I did the same thing. When I was playing the role of a mother all my life. And when I play the role of a mom, my kid has no choice. They are forced to play the role of a child. And anytime I see that child getting out of that role, I'm like, "Rah," and then I go back there and I push them back into that role. But what happens over time is that I not only dehumanize myself, maybe I want to take a break today, but I think, oh, no, that organic food has to be made this way at this time. And I had this moment of making this organic dish. And I'm thinking to myself, in this gorgeous organic dish is also guilt over responsibility. I'm no longer feeding my kids this bad stuff. I'm working so hard for it to be pure. And look what I'm doing. I'm putting so much in there. It's better to go get them pizza before I feed them this stuff. And you could shift anytime during that meal making. So guilt over responsibility, no longer playing a role, no dehumanizing yourself or the other person. Because when I dehumanize my child, I can't see them for who they are. I can only see them for what I need to see them. It's very, like, I get very anxious if it's anything else, and they can feel it and they're
Oh,
scared.
yeah.
And they pretend to be what I am. So guilt over responsibility, role playing. And the last one is transaction. When transaction came through, I said, I'm just so much better than that. I'm not that person. I don't do that anymore, that I need them to put me in diapers. I'm going to take care of me. I got my savings and stuff. But what I realized, that there was an insidious carbon monoxide hidden version of transaction, which sounds like this. If I do this for you, even though it's hard for me, you're going to feel good about yourself. Can't know that. If I'm going to buy this for you, even though it's really expensive for me, you're going to be successful. Can't know that. You're going to love yourself. Like, even that you're going to improve. You can't even, if I make this food for you, you're going to like it. My mom had a huge problem with this one. She's like, what do you mean? They have to like it. Otherwise, what's the point of making food?
Yeah. Oh my God. So much baggage we bring into love, right? It's amazing. And it's all mindset, right? At the end of it, what is your mindset behind the love that you're giving to people? And so much of it is at this like almost subconscious level where we don't even realize it until we actually start paying attention to it. Right. And I know for me, like there was this tug of war inside of my mind, which was, I want to raise my kid to be able to follow his passions and do everything that his heart desires. But on the flip side, I also want to make sure that he can make money and he can have a good life and live this lifestyle that he's used to. Right. And so that tug of war is what kept like making me want to seek out help. And that was my default, right? And this is the thing that I turn to always is let me reach out and ask for help, because if I don't know it, chances are there is somebody out there who knows it. And I happen to have a really good friend who is a parenting coach, and so it worked out really well. But I think that there's also this taboo, and I feel like we're going into the South Asian culture for some reason today, but we'll just let it go because I think we're meant to. And I think, or I would just say all immigrant cultures, right? Just because I know other immigrant friends from other countries who also go through the same thing. So we also hesitate to ask for help. What is that about? Why? Why do we do that?
I have no idea. I mean, just yesterday I was watching an episode of whatever that show is with the Mad Men guy, and the character who's the therapist goes, "Oh, he ignored us to a point where I had to have an affair." And I'm thinking, "Girl, you're a therapist. Even you didn't ask for help. Come on." I mean, and I'll
That's
tell you,
not
Chitra,
just
I
a
know that
cultural thing.
I know that you're saying South Asian cultural, but my children went primarily in a white school right here in New Jersey. There were some Asian people that started to come by the time my third kid came, but when my first one was there, he was the only brown kid there. So I noticed the same culture, the same role playing, the same transactions, the same pressure that I need this trophy on my mantle. These parents had gone to Ivy League schools. They had legacy there, and they needed their children to get in. And it was a lot of pressure on the kids. And I remember my daughter going to high school here at Kent Place, which is such a gorgeous, was one of my favorites. She loves it there too. She goes, "Mom, everybody's on medication." I'm like, "What?" She's like pro. She's like saying, "I need to get on medication too."
Wow.
She goes, "That's how it goes, Mom. Okay, it's pressure.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure." I'm like, "Okay, I don't understand."
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It,
I get it. I get it. There's a lot.
yeah.
It's got very little to do. It is much more diverse than our
Mm,
immigrant culture.
yeah,
It's that box thinking. Like
it
we've got
is.
to be this thing.
And I think there's so many layers to it, right? So many layers to it. When you start peeling the layers, I mean, I have this whole peel, feel, heal formula that I work with people on, because we really, each of us, no matter where we come from, no matter what culture we belong to, I think that one of the things a therapist friend had said to me is that every family has their own culture, right? And so we really need to understand what our cultural background is, what our mindset has been fed over and over. And when we start to peel those layers, is when we start to understand how similar, to your point, our problems are, no matter where we come from. And we all have the same, let's say, the four lies that you're talking about. We all do that. We all do that. And it's about gaining that awareness of, okay, why am I doing this? And does this serve me or not? Or is it actually hindering my relationships? And it seems like that's the work that you help people do as well, by identifying the lies. Would you
Yes.
say that's the work you do with them?
Yes, I help them identify. You know, the love clarity method is a bigger thing, which involves the self forgiveness. It involves the healing, but but if I have to give somebody something very very fast, it's the four love lies. If you pause and you check in there, you're going to start to heal the way you love. I have a situation here where my youngest, I have like a person, my firstborn becoming a doctor. Okay, yeah. The second one, lawyer. The third one, musician. Right?
Ooh, I like
My mom's like, I can't believe you're gonna do that. I'm like,
it. Yeah. Well, we've evolved now, right?
but I will say, Chitra, he comes home and he says to me, Mom, I'm just so grateful for the energy that we have at home, because there's so many of my friends who don't want to go home. These are all good families. They're all doing their best, Chitra. They're
Yeah.
putting their kids through. I mean, they are really sacrificing a lot for these kids to go to school. So it's not like they don't love these kids, but it's not about when I talk about relationships, really it is about our relationship with ourselves.
First and foremost, that is it. That is it. I agree 100%. If we
And
don't
when
have a
that,
good,
yeah,
healthy
yes,
relationship with ourselves, we are not going to be able to project the kind of love that we should be projecting out in the world, right?
yeah,
Because we're coming from our place of hurt, or we're coming from a place of depletion, or,
yes,
we're coming from a place of being judged. And so we continue, what they say, hurt people hurt people. So
yes.
that's kind of where we are. Yeah. I love this conversation. There is so much beauty in doing the work. And I hope that this episode is another one of those that reminds people to pause and reflect on their own thoughts, because that's where it starts. What are you thinking? What are you about to say or do? And how is that going to impact the person that you're going to say or do it to? And having these now four lies that we can filter our love through before we put it out there, I think is such a great tool for people to practice. And I hope that everyone listening is taking notes and taking this wisdom in from Sanya Bari. And we cannot wait to implement this. Do you have a favorite book or a favorite quote that you can share with us?
Uh, my favorite quote is by Rumi when he says, "The task is not to seek for love, it
Mm,
is to seek and find all the barriers you have put within yourself." So all we're doing is the barriers, and those four love lies are the barriers. You remove those, and you already love. There's
mm.
nothing to be had.
Yes, yes, yeah. This is reminding me of another quote that I heard recently is when you die, nobody's gonna remember all the shoes you had owned, or all the stuff that you had, all the material wealth. They're gonna remember how you treated people and how people treated you. And so, it's so important for us to remember that all of us come from that source of love. And it's so beautiful to look at it from that perspective of this quote that you shared, that we are just working on avoid the barriers. And I think that's what the world looks like now. It looks like there's more barriers. It looks like there's more hate, but we just need to keep removing them and find the love again because it's there. It's there and we're all connected by it. It's a common thread in all of humanity. I love it. I love it. Do you have a book you would recommend to our listeners?
One of the books that I really love is called Conscious Loving by Kathleen and Gay Hendricks. It's a seminal work, and it's got really very good insight into that's deeper than what you find in other places.
Cool. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that recommendation. I haven't heard it either, so I will definitely get it on my Audible if I can. Tell us where people can find you, Sanya.
Best place to find me is on Instagram. I do lives every single day. Sometimes I don't do weekends. And, you could just search my name. You'll find something.
Beautiful.
I'm
And
sure if you want to find me, you will.
yeah, there you go. There you go. Where there's a will, there's a way. So we will put all your Instagram handle and everything, all your information in the show notes. I am so grateful for this conversation. Thank you so much for being here and enlightening us with your love clarity method and spiritual psychology and all that beautiful stuff.
Thank you so much, Chitra, for having me.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. I can't wait for this episode to be out.